When a narcissist can no longer control you, they'll try to control how you feel. But when you stay calm, you take away their power entirely. Your silence becomes their punishment, your peace their greatest fear. The narcissist loses power when you stay emotionally calm and refuse to react. They depend on your emotional volatility the way a parasite depends on its host. Every word they throw, every subtle jab, every twist of truth is designed to extract a reaction. They want your frustration, your anger, your confusion, because those emotions tell them they still have access to you. When you're emotionally charged, you're easier to manipulate, easier to control. But when you respond with calm, when you stop taking the bait, you disrupt the entire dynamic they've built. You no longer serve the role they assigned you, and that terrifies them. A narcissist thrives on dominance, on the illusion that they're the one orchestrating your emotions. They set emotional traps and watch to see if you'll step in. They create tension and wait for your explosion so they can play the victim. They accuse you of things that hit deep wounds just to watch you defend yourself. Every outburst, every over-explanation, every tear, those are all signals to them that their manipulation still works. But when you become aware of this pattern, when you see their tactics for what they are and remain centered, something profound happens. You take back your autonomy. You stop being a puppet to their emotional strings. Calmness doesn't mean indifference. It's control. It's strength under pressure. It's the power to choose how you'll respond instead of letting someone else dictate it. The narcissist wants to pull you into the storm because in chaos, they feel powerful. They understand how to dominate in emotional turmoil. But when you're calm, you shift the power dynamic. You make them uncomfortable because they can't read you anymore. They can't predict your reactions or rely on their usual manipulative rhythm. You become a mystery. And to a narcissist, that's intolerable. Your calmness forces them to confront their own instability. They start to see themselves reflected in the silence. It's unsettling for them because without your reaction, they're left alone with their own emotions, the very emotions they've spent their life avoiding. They project their insecurities, fears, and guilt onto others so they don't have to feel them. But when you refuse to engage, that projection bounces back and they're forced, even briefly, to face the emptiness within. Your calm becomes a mirror they can't stand to look into. This is why they'll often escalate when you stay calm. They'll push harder, say crueler things, bring up your vulnerabilities, or twist your past against you, all in a desperate attempt to get a reaction. The more you remain grounded, the more exposed their tactics become. They can't sustain their illusion of superiority if you're not emotionally collapsing under their control. Your calm undermines their authority, their sense of importance. It dismantles the power dynamic that feeds their ego. And that's why it's so difficult for them to tolerate someone who has achieved emotional balance. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't play their game. They can't control someone who chooses peace over chaos. When you respond with composure, you signal that their behavior no longer dictates your internal state. You're sending a clear message. You don't get to decide how I feel anymore. That realization hits them harder than any argument ever could. This kind of calmness doesn't come naturally at first. It's built through self-awareness and emotional discipline. It's choosing, moment after moment, not to let someone else's dysfunction pull you off balance. It's learning to observe their tactics without internalizing them. You start to see the pattern, the cycles of provocation and blame, and instead of getting caught in it, you rise above it. You begin to operate from a higher level of awareness where your peace becomes your weapon and your restraint becomes your shield. When you stay emotionally calm, you reclaim the most valuable territory there is, your mind. The narcissist can't touch that unless you allow them to. They might control the conversation, twist the facts, or create emotional chaos, but they can't control your inner response. And once they realize that, once they understand that you no longer feed their ego through reaction, their power over you begins to dissolve. Your calmness exposes their chaos and strips away their control. Narcissists depend on confusion to maintain their grip on others. They build entire illusions of power through manipulation, projection, and emotional disruption. When you remain calm, those illusions begin to crack because their control thrives only in an environment of emotional turbulence. The narcissist's goal is to destabilize you, to make you question your reality, your worth, and your perception of what's happening. But calmness brings clarity, and clarity is something they can't manipulate. When you stay composed, you begin to see through the smoke and mirrors they create. Their contradictions become visible, their lies unravel, and the psychological tricks they've used for so long lose their effectiveness. Calmness doesn't just expose their chaos, it highlights how dependent they are on it. They need drama because it distracts from their inner emptiness. Their ego feeds on external control, on being able to provoke a response. When you no longer respond the way they expect, they start to lose their footing. Your peace holds up a mirror to their dysfunction, showing them just how chaotic they truly are beneath the surface. They try to draw you back into the emotional game because without your reaction, their illusion of dominance collapses. You remove their ability to steer the emotional direction of the interaction, and that leaves them powerless. In those moments of calm, their behavior often becomes erratic. They might escalate arguments, raise their voice, or resort to guilt and blame, anything to disrupt your composure. They need to restore imbalance because your steadiness exposes them. But if you maintain control, if you refuse to mirror their agitation, they can no longer hide behind manipulation. Their words begin to sound empty, their attempts to twist reality lose impact, and what's left is the raw truth of who they are. They can't stand being seen clearly because their entire identity depends on distortion. Your calm presence forces them into the light, and in that light, their power fades. Remaining calm also strips them of one of their greatest tools, emotional leverage. They manipulate emotions to dominate interactions, to make you doubt yourself, to keep you off balance. But calmness takes away that leverage completely. When you don't rise to their provocations, when you respond with reason instead of reaction, they lose the ability to control your state of mind. They realize they can't use guilt to make you submit, can't use anger to make you defensive, can't use confusion to make you chase clarity from them. You stop giving them access to your emotional energy, and that's what they need most to sustain their illusion of superiority. Calmness is truth revealed. It uncovers the instability they hide and restores your sense of control over yourself. It transforms the dynamic because now you're no longer inside their emotional maze. You're watching it from above, aware of every manipulation, every tactic. And once you see their chaos clearly, you can no longer be ruled by it. Silence and composure become powerful tools of resistance against manipulation. A narcissist thrives on reaction because it gives them feedback, confirmation that they still have emotional influence over you. Every argument, every defensive explanation, every tear is proof to them that their manipulation is effective. But silence interrupts that feedback loop. It denies them the validation they seek. When you choose composure over confrontation, you're not being submissive, you're being strategic. You're refusing to feed the cycle that keeps them in power. Silence confuses them because it removes their ability to predict or control your emotional response. It's like pulling the rug out from under their psychological game. They depend on chaos, on noise, on emotional energy to sustain their sense of importance, and when you offer none of it, their control begins to collapse. Silence also shifts the balance of attention. Narcissists are experts at centering themselves in every situation. They dominate conversations, redirect focus, and twist narratives until you're left explaining, defending, or apologizing. But when you're silent, you stop giving them that stage. You reclaim your voice by withholding it. The quiet becomes your boundary, a line they can't cross. It forces them to face the absence of the control they once had. They can no longer dictate the rhythm of interaction because you're not engaging in their performance. This unnerves them because they rely on your participation to keep the dynamic alive. Without your energy feeding it, the manipulation withers. Composure is the external reflection of inner strength. It shows that you've developed the discipline to choose peace over reaction, awareness over impulse. Narcissists try to trigger emotional responses to anchor you in their chaos, but composure keeps you anchored in yourself. It communicates that you are no longer accessible through emotional manipulation. They may raise their voice, shift from charm to cruelty, or attempt to provoke guilt, all tactics designed to crack your calm. But when you hold steady, you teach them that their power has limits. They can no longer access your emotions at will. This subtle but profound shift begins to dismantle the psychological control they once held over you. Silence and composure also create a psychological contrast that exposes their instability. While you remain calm, Their need to dominate pushes them into escalating behavior, revealing the true nature of their insecurity. They start to look unreasonable, desperate, even irrational, and for the first time the mask slips. Your calmness highlights what they work so hard to hide, the inner chaos driving their need for control. And that contrast doesn't just affect them, it affects everyone who witnesses it. People begin to see who is grounded and who is manipulative. Your silence becomes a statement that speaks louder than confrontation ever could. In the end, silence and composure are not forms of avoidance, they are deliberate acts of power. They protect your peace, they conserve your energy, and they dismantle manipulation without you ever needing to fight back on the narcissist's terms. Emotional detachment breaks the cycle of control and fuels your inner healing. A narcissist thrives on emotional dependency. They build a web where your feelings, your validation, and your self-worth become tied to their approval or disapproval. They train you to seek peace through their acceptance and chaos through their rejection. It's a cycle designed to keep you trapped, always trying to please them, always trying to fix the unfixable. But emotional detachment severs that link. It's the quiet realization that you don't need their approval to feel stable, and you don't need their attention to feel seen. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop being controlled by caring too much about someone who uses your emotions against you. When you detach emotionally, you start to observe the manipulation from a distance instead of being consumed by it. You begin to see patterns instead of taking things personally. Their insults no longer cut as deep because you recognize that their words are projections of their own insecurities. Their silent treatments, their mood swings, their guilt tripping, all of it starts to look like a desperate attempt to maintain control rather than a reflection of your worth. Detachment gives you clarity. It's like stepping out of a fog where everything once felt confusing and distorted. You start to see that the problem was never your sensitivity, it was their need to exploit it. The narcissist loses power the moment you stop reacting emotionally. They can no longer manipulate your guilt, your fear, or your desire to please. They may still try to provoke you, but your detachment shields you from the chaos. You begin to understand that you don't owe them emotional labor. You're not responsible for fixing their moods or absorbing their pain. This realization is liberating because it restores your emotional independence. It's the point where you stop dancing to their rhythm and start moving at your own pace. Detachment creates space between what they do and how you feel, and that space is where your healing begins. Through detachment, you start to rebuild a relationship with yourself that the narcissist once eroded. You begin to value your peace over their approval, your boundaries over their comfort, your truth over their manipulation. You stop explaining yourself to someone who only listens to control, not to understand. This emotional distance allows you to recover the parts of yourself that were buried under their constant criticism or neglect. It's where you rediscover your confidence, your voice, and your worth, independent of their validation. Detachment is not coldness, it's strength wrapped in clarity. It's choosing to protect your energy and direct it toward your own growth, instead of feeding their need for attention. It's refusing to be emotionally available to someone who only takes and never gives. The narcissist may interpret your detachment as arrogance or indifference, but it's actually the deepest form of self-respect. It's you finally realizing that peace is not found in fixing them, it's found in freeing yourself. True strength lies in mastering your peace, not matching their chaos. The narcissist's greatest weapon is emotional disruption. They know how to trigger you, how to press on your insecurities, and how to draw you into emotional warfare where they always feel one step ahead. But real strength isn't found in fighting back on their terms, it's in staying grounded when they expect you to crumble. Mastering your peace means learning to regulate your emotions when someone else is trying to provoke them. It's the skill of choosing calm over reaction, awareness over impulsivity. It's understanding that the person who can stay composed under pressure holds the true power in any interaction. When you master your peace, you stop being emotionally available for their manipulation. You see their games clearly, but you don't participate. You recognize when they're baiting you into defending yourself or proving your worth, and you refuse to engage. This kind of restraint doesn't come from weakness, it comes from deep internal strength. It means you've grown beyond the need to be understood by someone who distorts truth. You no longer waste energy trying to change a person who feeds off control. You've learned that silence, composure, and self-control communicate more powerfully than any argument ever could. The narcissist wants you reactive because that's when they feel superior. They feed on emotional chaos. It gives them a sense of power, of importance, of control. But your peace starves them of that energy. It shows them they no longer hold the emotional influence they once did. And that realization threatens them more than anything else. When you maintain your calm, you're not only protecting your sanity, you're dismantling the entire psychological foundation they stand on. You're taking back authority over your mind, your emotions, and your energy. Mastering peace is an act of rebellion against manipulation. It's refusing to allow your inner state to be dictated by someone else's instability. It's not about ignoring reality, it's about refusing to be consumed by it. You begin to respond with understanding instead of anger, boundaries instead of arguments, silence instead of explanations. You start to embody a kind of calm that isn't easily shaken, and that calm becomes your shield. The narcissist can't win when you no longer react, because reaction is the only power they ever had. Developing this level of peace requires awareness and discipline. It means catching yourself in the moment before you react, taking a breath and remembering that your peace is worth more than their approval. It's recognizing that self-control is the ultimate display of strength. Anyone can shout, argue, or break down, but staying calm in the face of provocation requires mastery of the self. And once you've reached that level of inner stability, no manipulation can truly touch you. Your calm becomes your fortress, and inside that fortress, you are free.